the realm of the dead Necropia, a realm of death devoid of any traces of life. Its sky a permanent shade of crimson, a symbol of death and decay. In this realm, undead dragons own the sky. An ominous red moon looms in the background. In these barren lands, a grand castle stands tall on a cliff, the sole castle of Necropia, containing unimaginable things, endless golden pillars and beautiful ornaments and murals, marble hall that sprawls out beneath the intricately crafted glorious sculptures, and the absolute symbol of power in this cursed land, Death King Karnak. The transcendent king and ruler of all finally realized after a century that humans were not made to command death. In his human days, Karnak had been the bastard child of a fallen noble family. Having lost his mother at a young age, he grew to trust only himself and his own power. Through fate, he chanced upon a forbidden codex of necromancy, completely steering off the path of a mortal. Drank with power, he brought death and destruction to the kingdom and all humans alike. Finally, the 4 martial kings and 3 grand mages rose up against him, yet they were ultimately converted to his own subjects. Next came the guardian of the world, Dragon Emperor Greteria, but like all those before him, he submitted to the absolute ruler. Knowing no defeat, Karnak transcended into the ultimate undead, giving rise to the strongest Death King to ever exist. He thought he could have it all, but after 70 years of living with a body with only bones, he realized it was all pointless. He longed for the warm sunshine and gentle breeze, the warmth of a human. Dude just wanted some cheeks. Or even the terrible pain digging through his flesh. Anything would be better than his dry, empty life. After endless suffering and research, he finally found some hope, a forbidden mural. Amidst echoing footsteps, a figure entered the hall, clad in a majestic knight's armor and a demon helmet visor. He was the head commander of the Legions of Death, Baros. Karnak informed Baros of the preparations being completed. Startled, Baros glanced at the ominous mural shrouded in a purple aura. Karnak expressed his optimism, saying he had a great feeling about this attempt. And like the good boy he is, Baros showed some tsundere behavior, glazing the king. The king had been searching for a way to recover the pleasures of the flesh with Baros. He tried vampirism, possession. Yet all that failed. The problem lay in their ascendant nature, as no method could fulfill their needs. Karnak ultimately came to one conclusion. If they could not enjoy human pleasures because they were no longer human, he could simply turn back time to the days they still were. It's regression time, baby. Karnak informed Baros of the plan. They were to regress back to when he first obtained the Forbidden Codex. Baros, understandingly worried, asked if they would disappear if they failed. Karnak, perplexed, inquired if Baros still had any lingering regrets in his life, on the low, though he was fully ready to leave our tsundere behind. "I do not," answered Baros in a firm tone. Taking the gamble, they activated the transgression mural. The mural radiated an intense violet aura, bathing them in it. It was time to return back when they lived like humans. Gaining consciousness, Karnak awoke to distant murmurs and a blurry blonde silhouette standing before him. "Young master, please wake up," he said. He leaned closer, staring at the still-laying Karnak, asking if he was finally up. Gazing at the familiar blonde Chad before him, Karnak sat up, inquiring if he was indeed Baros. Baros, shy and still being a tsundere, awkwardly brushed his hair, confirming that it was indeed him. It had been a long time since he had that face. Throwing shots, Baros remarked on Karnak's pompous and scrawny face, just like the good old days. Karnak said Baros still lacked respect. Inwardly, though, he wondered if he really looked that bad. Looking around the cave, Karnak sought out the Forbidden Codex of Necromancy, the start of everything. With a snap of his finger, he shot a bolt of magic at the book, setting it ablaze. Visibly shaken, Baros asked if it was really necessary to burn the codex. Karnak, on the other hand, was more focused on the meager amount of power he had regressed with. Like the Chad he is, the king said it was all right since he remembered everything, in the codex anyway, and although forbidden, the codex only contained the basics, nothing really important. It was better to get rid of it than to leave the possibility of having to deal with it later. Baros the tsundere glazed our boy, remarking on his apparent foresight, and our boy just stood tall, soaking in the compliments. The minute of glazing was interrupted by the loud rumbling of stomachs, bringing an awkward atmosphere between the two. Visibly delighted, our tsundere Baros held his stomach, saying it was asking for food. In a jubilant mood, they left the cave seeking the long-awaited meal. Fast forward. In a local turban, loud cheering broke the otherwise calm environment, startling the passerby. In the turban, 3 random extras looked on in shock, shouts of praise about the barley bread being a masterpiece ringing endlessly in the inn. We can see that it's our favorite tsundere, making all the fuss, chomping on a piece of bread, literal tears flowing down his face. Scratch that, it turns out our Death King is also losing his shit over the bread. With a puffy face, Baros said the gamble with their lives was totally worth it. The bread tasted so good. Tears were blocking his eyes. Karnak reminded him to watch how much he ate. Money didn't fall out of the sky. He had to chew the food over and over. Baros reminded him to slow down too. Karnak, on the other hand, was about to pass out from the aroma. Like 2 zombies drawn to blood, the two immediately shifted their gazes towards the neighboring table. On it was a scrumptious chicken, lamenting on how they probably couldn't afford it, being from a fallen family. Karnak contemplated just killing them all and having the chicken all to himself, with Baros just barely holding him back. Holding the coin bag, Baros informed Karnak that at their current strength they'd probably just get beaten up. Lamenting on the sin of being poor, he opened the bag. What he saw startled him. Calling his young master, he informed Karnak that they had a problem. In a serious tone, he informed him of the potential effect their time traveling might have had. Staring at the coin bag, Karnak and Baros both agreed on the strange situation. There was no way they would have that much money. Karnak wondered where things started to go wrong. At the time, the Jested family's financial situation was terrible. His grandfather, Baron Grelid, started many businesses with the territory as collateral and failed in all of them, leaving only debts for his father, Baron Kraput. Unfortunately, Karnak's puppy didn't have the ability to handle the ever-growing debts as well. His original wife's 2 sons were useless trash who weren't helpful at all to the family. Karnak, the bastard child born into the family, received all of the family's scorn and barely endured each day. At least that's what the family's state should have been upon his regression. So, what happened? Picking up the coins, Karnak wondered where all that money had come from. Unable to find happiness in the weird situation, Karnak wondered whether the time regression had somehow gone wrong. Our favorite tsundere Baros shot back, asking why an all-brawn, no-brain swordsman like himself would know. Rubbing his head aggrievedly, Karnak wondered if they had really come back to the past, even with the vast similarities in his memories. Pulling him from his thoughts, our happy-go-lucky commander asked if this meant they could now enjoy some chicken, arguing that their concerns wouldn't disappear even if they didn't use the money. Karnak folded like a true simp. Drooling, he quickly caved and suggested they each ordered a full chicken, shouting out their order. Fast forward, our boy Baros is seen gently patting his bulging food baby, having gained serious weight from the one meal. "We should be able to pass out and sleep once we get back," Karnak said. Baros replied, saying he wasn't really thrilled about seeing the family again. Karnak assured him they'd be fine, as long as they sucked up to them. Inwardly, though, he knew he wasn't the same wimp he once was. Riding on his majestic black steed, Karnak expressed how strange the situation was. Baros, riding beside him, agreed, saying it wasn't just 1 or 2 things that were out of place. Even the horses they rode were off, not to mention the suspicious station manager that was glazing them like crazy. It made no sense for a failed family to have such great horse breeds. That didn't stop our boy from acting cool, though, even striking a JoJo pose while flashing the cash. The citizens they bumped into, those who used to call them scoundrels and scorn them, were instead so happy to see them, they teared up. It was supreme glazing everywhere. Karnak felt uneasy with the changes. Baros replied, telling him they would find out once they returned home, as they were almost there. We get a great shot of the mansion resting in the evening sunset, our boys riding towards it like some fairy tale chads. Gazing at the mansion, Karnak expressed how nostalgic it was to see it, being as it had been a while. Baros, on the other hand, felt annoyed. He lacked good memories of the place. A bit of backstory for our sassy tsundere. We learn that Baros was also an orphan, so he didn't live a comfortable life. His parents were absolute scamming scumbags who abandoned him in the middle of the night. Karnak discovered him as he was dying alone. Afterwards he brought him with him, and surprisingly, his father allowed it. Even if he was an illegitimate child, his family had to save face, and he would still need an attendant of some sort. Calling him young master, Baros awoke Karnak from his back thoughts. Pointing out, he asked Karnak if that was really the Jested residence. Karnak, poised to answer obviously, was taken aback by the view before him. A majestic mansion loomed before them, 2 fully armed guards manning its gate. Baros wondered if they had come to the wrong place, Karnak replied, assuring him they were definitely in the right place. A tall brick wall, a 2-story building with a terrace, an extensive garden that surrounded it. It was the same, other than the fact that it was surprisingly splendid. They had completely spruced it up. They wondered where the money had come from, though. Noticing them, the guard addressed him as young master. Getting of his mighty steed, Karnak lamented how even the guards welcomed him now. Oblivious to his thoughts, the other guard corrected the first, telling him that was not the proper way to greet him. Bowing deeply, they welcomed him as the lord of the manor. Obviously shocked, our boy spaced out for a bit. "It's already been half a year since you became the family head. Have you achieved your goal?" asked the elegant-looking butler, Japel Plaid. Karnak, though, was just tripping balls. Japel asked if that wasn't why he left on a journey. Fumbling, Karnak replied, sort of. Beaming with the most radiant smile, Japel remarked on the late lord and lady being thrilled. Karnak, shocked, wondered when his father and stepmother had died. Oblivious to their shock, Japel continued with the truth, Bombs saying after his brothers Tessil and Farilith passed away, times were looking grim, but now he felt better. Karnak, though, just wondered why his family had all died and why he was now the Lord. The goal of his journey was obvious. It was to master necromancy while no one was looking. Baros whispered to him, saying there's no way he would have revealed their goal so honestly. Karnak, equally perplexed, said that's why he must have given a bullshit story about going on a journey. He wondered, though, why would he still need necromancy in a situation like this? Japel, with a creepy face, asked what they were worried about, making our boys trip balls. Coming up with a bullshit lie, Baros excused themselves, claiming Karnak still needed rest after the long journey. Our boy, though, was just there playing the part, looking like a deflated ball. Apologizing for his oversight, Japel quickly excused himself, shutting the door behind him. Saluting Baros, Karnak congratulated him on his quick thinking. Baros, confused and still concerned about the narrow escape, asked what they would do. Karnak, acting smug, said he knew of a perfect method for times like these. Baros, catching on, exclaimed in excitement. Karnak asked if he still remembered what he needed to prepare. With an ominous smile like he's about to cook something, he urged Baros to hurry up while everyone slept. In the middle of the night, a beautiful moon hangs in the night sky, the majestic castle bathing in its light. Standing before the sleeping butler, Baros handed a bowl full of herbs to Karnak, inwardly, though he lamented on how long it took to gather them. Karnak accepted the bowl, telling Baros they should commence the inspection. Igniting the contents of the bowl in a purple, ominous flame, smoke drifted into the nose of the butler. Karnak commanded him to awaken. The butler, high on the herbs, addressed Karnak as master. Karnak inquired how the Jested family finances had improved and how he became the head of the household. The butler, in his half-lucid state, told him that 4 years ago, when out on his training, the second young master coincidentally came across a large copper mine. Our boy didn't hide his surprise, reasoning nobles often used mines as an excuse to hide their dirty money. Baros, equally conflicted, agreed to the statement, but then again, maybe in this case, it was actually true. Karnak went ahead to ask if that was the reason why the whole family was dead. The butler informed them that the main issue was the location of the mine, as it was located in a neutral zone between the Jested family and the Deventor family. The two families claimed ownership of the mine, and conflict inevitably broke out. The Deventors had always been a stronger military family, and there was no one who could defeat their head knight, Sir Randolph. He slayed the Baron and even killed Tessil, the oldest son of the family, the household's best knight. The second young master lost pathetically to him, even losing 2 of his legs. Eventually he took his own life, The Baroness too passed away from the shock soon after. Eventually, Karnak was chosen to be the successor, despite being a minor, and the two families agreed on a ceasefire until he became the new head. Apparently coming up with a solution to save the family, Karnak requested a duel with the Viscount in the name of Allium, the goddess of moon and justice. Visibly shaking, our boy told the butler to hold the fuck up, screaming, "What duel?" Baros, equally shocked, commented on how rushed the decision was. A little backstory into the duel. We are informed that the trial duel was carried out under the mandates of the Allium Order, and it's possible to substitute a warrior in your stead. The duel, though, is carried out under the presence of a priest, and victory can only be achieved through eliminating your opponent. Our boy Baros tells Karnak, "GG, dude was definitely dead." Karnak, visibly upset as well, replied it was his stupid past self, not him. Of course, he realized how futile continuing the war would have been, and understood why he chose this path. The Devantors would not have refused a duel, as it would have ruined their image. Winning the duel, he would have secured the copper mine, and helped them avoid starvation. Baros pointed out that with his current strength, he was bound to end up dead. Karnak inquired about the duel date, getting a reply that it was just a month away. Our boy started losing his shit. It was too close. We fast forward to the next morning in an opulent dining hall, the table full of all sorts of delicious desserts. Baros, shocked, asked Karnak where all the food came from. Karnak, with his suspect smile, glazed our boy, telling him the food was all his, a reward for his hard work. Staffing his face, Baros asked if it was all right to be resting like this as the date of the duel was so close. Karnak, still holding his devious smile, slickly asked Baros if he could attend in his stead. Having none of it, Baros shooed him away, realizing the food was just a bribe. He apologized, but he just couldn't do it. Aggrieved, Karnak asked why, since he had killed the 4 martial kings. Baros dejectedly replied that it was all because of our boy's necromancy. It was impossible to gain martial powers from just experience alone, just as it was meaningless to learn advanced swordsmanship and be lacking an arm. Maybe in half a year he could pull it off, but a month was impossible. Baros asked why he couldn't just look for another knight in his order, but apparently they were all trash. Having no other choice, Karnak decided to use necromancy, igniting an ominous purple flame in this palm. There was one major problem, though. Necromancy was forbidden. A bit of a flashback to the past, our boys were on the run from knights screaming murder. They had managed to stealthily eliminate the household using necromancy, but the priests of Allium had singled them out as the culprits. Surrounded on all sides by knights and priests, Karnak chanted a spell, calling forth the powers of the abyss to summon resentful spirit wraiths. Witnessing the undead wraith swarming them, the knights took their stances ready for battle. Karnak spread his arms, sending his wraiths towards the priests for an attack. The priests holding the sacred guardian plaques countered. Unfortunately, it was all for naught as the wraiths slashed them in half with ease. Capitalizing on the momentum, Karnak sent the wraiths towards the holy knights, and just like the priests, they too were annihilated amidst horrific screams. Taking the chance to flee, Karnak asked Baros how they had been found out. According to the codex, that should have been impossible. Reading from the Forbidden Codex, Baros informed him that the priests were an exception. Our boy couldn't help but have a WTF face. Back to the present, Baros reminisced about the good old days, the beginning of their legend. He told Karnak he figured out what his past self had planned. He wanted to stealthily use necromancy during the duel. However, that plan was flawed, as the duel was judged by the priests, and he would have been found out immediately. Baros, happy-go-lucky as ever, suggested to get some cash and bail. Karnak, though tempted, turned down the offer. Baros told our Chad to prepare for his funeral. Instructing Baros to sit, Karnak told him he had a plan. We cut to the northern fort of Devantor, the soldiers busy with their training. All of them seemed gassed out except one, Randolph, Devantor's strongest knight. Randolph responded to Breet's inquiry about him not training. Throwing shade at our boy, he called him weak and a foolish young master who didn't know anything. If only he knew our boy was a literal demigod. While glazing Sir Randolph, Breet noticed the commotion nearby. Zooming in on the culprit, we realize that it's Baros rocking a fake moustache, doing some Assassin's Creed side quests. Baros, still donning his fake moustache, secretly analyzed Randolph, although mighty in combat. In a one-on-one duel, his opponent had a significant chance of winning. He was the simple, foolish type that relied on heavy sword technique, all brawn, no brain. This weakness was further worsened by his inability to use battle aura. It was child play to predict the movements of opponents such as him. However, the limited time frame still posed a significant challenge. Lost in his thoughts, Baros didn't notice a blonde mammy sneak up on him. She wearily asked what business he had with her brother, as he'd been glaring at him intensely. Quick on his feet, Baros turned and showed a beaming smile, asking if she was indeed Randolph's sister. Getting a positive response from the mammy, he immediately started glazing, calling the knight his idol and praising him for his exceptional vigor. Diverting her attention, he offered her a set of luxurious handkerchiefs for sale, promising a substantial discount if she bought some. The blonde mammy, clearly smitten, took the hook and pointed to her preference, our boy still offering some praises in the background. In the Jestard Estate personal drill hall, Baros enthusiastically announced his return, asking Karnak about his training. Karnak, though, had checked out, his soul literally leaving his body. Holding him in his arms, Baros begged our MC to wake up. Turns out he ran 50 laps around the drill hall and collapsed immediately after. Throwing some shots, Baros commented on his stamina being absolutely garbage. Karnak, aggrieved, asked why it was even necessary for him to train his stamina. Baros, taking the chance, threw more shade, telling him his shrimp-like body was utter trash. Karnak, fully checked out, asked for some time to rest. Is it just me, or does he look like a bootleg version of Captain Levi? Baros, with a very punchable face, told Karnak his real training was about to start. Everything until that point was just rehab. It's the return of the demon instructor Baros. That tongue, though. 20 days until the duel, their routine was finally set. A filling breakfast in the morning. After that, it's 100 push-ups in the drill hall, followed by 100 pole swings, 100 squats, then finally a break. At which point, Karnak could already feel his existence fading. Too bad for him, because the torture wasn't over yet. They had to repeat the same routine again and again and again. 15 days until the duel, our boy is finally shaping into the Chad we all know he is, doing squats holding 2 heavy bags. Baros, holding a sword, congratulated him on his improvement. It's finally time for some sword training. Handing him the sword, Baros instructed Karnak to get into a sword stance, and as expected, it was utter garbage. Words can't express just how trash it was. Donning a majestic armor, Karnak, after repeated instructions, finally managed to maintain a proper stance. At least he won't be beheaded in a single attack anymore. To test his resolve, Baros urged Karnak to brace himself for his attack. Delivering a heavy stab, Karnak was hit straight in his gut, sending him reeling in pain. Baros, not relenting, followed up with a heavy vertical slash, then a set of relentless barrage of attacks, leaving Karnak with no room to counter. Ultimately, he was knocked down, Baros standing above him majestically. Helping him up, Baros explained that was the reason civilians were helpless against knights. Their attacks were unrelenting, leaving no room for a counterattack. He further told Karnak that the true goal of their training was to show Randolph his fighting will. Randolph had a habit of showing off. He would show off to the audience while toying with his opponent. However, it was different if his opponent lost his will to fight. Not wanting to ruin his honor by drawing out such a battle, he would instead immediately behead his opponent. Karnak had to show his unrelenting will, otherwise he would die with a single hit. 5 days to the duel, Karnak, in his full knight's armor, continued his training with Baros, fiercely clashing swords with him. Well, it's actually sword versus pipe. Reminding him to raise his voice, Baros swung his pipe towards Karnak, the latter barely managing to block it, before being sent rolling pathetically. The demon instructor Baros reminded Karnak that he's utter trash, and he shouldn't even dream of taking an attack head-on. He should always roll to escape. Karnak, though, inwardly complained about looking stupid doing the donkey roll. 4 days to the duel. Forget about his earlier reservations. Our boy is now fully doing the donkey roll. D3, the former demigod, is now just a donkey roll god. D2, our boy has fully mastered the donkey roll, perfectly sticking the landing. Gassed out, Karnak complained about dying from the training without even fighting Rudolph. With his sword in hand, the demon instructor told Karnak he was finally ready for their secret weapon. the sword techniques of the four martial kings. Surprised, Karnak asked if Baros knew their techniques. Baros affirmed, telling him that the four martial kings were his underlings, and he'd managed to learn all their techniques. All except for Martial King Rapicel, who resisted till the end. Karnak didn't turn her into an undead knight. Instead, he cut her into thirds and made her a gatekeeper. Baros told Karnak that he would teach him the technique of the Martial King Levendelphiad. Karnak, visibly doubtful, asked if 2 days were enough to learn the technique. Baros confidently told him he only needed 1. Duel day. In an open field on the border of Devontor and Jested, a grand arena was built in preparation for the duel. The citizens of the different territories chatted with each other, although fully confident in Rudolph's victory. They hoped our MC wouldn't lose too pathetically. Stepping out with his majestic armor, Karnak made his presence known to all. Amidst the mumbling crowd, the high priest stamped his spear to the ground, bringing silence to the crowd. He announced that the ownership of the mine would be determined by that duel. Calling forth our MC, Karnak stepped on the stage donning his knight armor, a shield and an elegant helmet. Randolph, on the other hand, because of a fairness handicap in accordance with the rules, had no armor and could only wield a wooden sword. Facing the priest, both swore to fight fairly. I doubt our boy will fight fair, though. Finally, the duel begins. Facing each other on the stage, both fighters took their stances. Randolph, confident in his strength, despite the obvious handicap, was the first to charge in, delivering a powerful overhead vertical slash at Karnak. Karnak, despite the initial adjustment, bravely blocked the attack. Cautioning Randolph that the winner wasn't yet determined. Avoiding a shield bash from Karnak, Randolph responded to his taunt, calling him all talk. Leaping forward, he delivered another heavy slash. Karnak, his stance holding firm, blocked using his shield. The spectators witnessing the fight praised Karnak for holding his own against the mighty foe. Randolph, swinging his sword, continued to probe Karnak with his attacks. Catching on, Karnak let out a mighty roar, showing his will. Impressed by our boy's fighting spirit, Randolph charged his sword with more energy, preparing a mighty blow. Alarmed by the sudden change and unable to block, Karnak executed the mighty donkey roll, barely escaping the disastrous blow that destroyed half the arena. Despite sticking the landing, Karnak still shocked the audience with his crude skill. It's getting hard to glaze our MC. Dropping his shield, Karnak taunted Randolph, telling him with his speed he wouldn't even need the shield anymore. Enraged, Randolph yelled, promising to silence Karnak for good. Not minding the obvious threat, Karnak continued his taunts while adjusting his stance, the Martial King's stance. The audience, noticing the stance, couldn't help but glaze our boy. Not falling for the taunt anymore, Randolph calmed down and focused. He knew the sword techniques of the Martial Kings could only be used by the geniuses with real battle experience, and Karnak was far from using it properly. Pointing his sword at Karnak, he refused to be intimidated, vowing to enact justice in the name of Allium. Karnak, visibly sweating bullets, cursed at his plan backfiring. Flashing back to when Karnak was learning the technique from Baros, Baros told him he didn't have to master it, a rough copy would suffice. He wouldn't need to pick up a sword after the duel. All he needed to do was to do enough to give the impression of him training hard. The real plan that would ensure their victory lay elsewhere. Karnak, getting a thorough beating, cursed Baros for failing to mention this part of the plan. Landing a counterattack, he finally had time to catch his breath. Crying pathetically, our boy still managed to spout bullshit, calling on the honor of the Jested bloodline. Dude has very thick skin. Vexed, Randolph couldn't understand what Karnak was up to. Despite the thorough beating, he still had the energy to spout bullshit. The audience, completely oblivious, glazed our boy, regretting ever calling him stupid. Baros, though, was just delighted. Karnak wasn't taking any direct hits. It seems the harsh beating came in handy. Fed up with the circus act, Randolph adjusted his stance, ready to end it. Karnak, gassed out, looked to be on his last legs as well. Charging forward with a mighty leap, Randolph prepared a devastating strike. Noticing the change, Baros cautioned Karnak to brace himself. Karnak, picking up on the secret code, knew it was time to enact their plan. Anticipating Randolph to go for his legs to end the fight, he shifted his stance to a defensive one and stabbed his sword into the ground, successfully blocking Randolph's strike. Capitalizing on Randolph's shock, he swung his sword upward in a diagonal arc, deflecting his sword, quickly switching his grip, and striking once more. He successfully landed a slash across Randolph's chest, perfectly executing the double uppercut overkill. Panting, Karnak watched the result of his counterattack, only to be met with Randolph's furious laughter, asking if that was all he had, nothing more than a kitten's scratch. Watching Randolph strike a carefree pose, Karnak couldn't help but curse the bastard. The audience watching from the stands believed the match was already set in stone. Reality was often cruel, and miracles seldom happened after all. Standing tall before Karnak, Randolph taunted him for letting his guard down. Karnak, vexed, told him not to look down on him. He was risking his life after all. With an ominous look, he stared daggers at Randolph. Sensing a shift in Karnak's demeanor, Randolph became cautious. But it was too late. A black aura seeped from his sword wound, catching him off guard. The aura furiously shot from his chest, becoming visible to everyone present. The priest, noticing the change, immediately identified the aura, the knights fully ready to draw their swords. Randolph swung his sword at the aura, trying to dispel it, but it was all for naught. Karnak, capitalizing on the chaos, charged at Randolph, saying he wouldn't fall for his dirty tricks. Randolph, ready for a counterattack, had his leg enveloped by the back aura, delivering a mighty kick to Karnak, sending him reeling and crashing pathetically. The audience watched Randolph in shock, wondering how it was possible to possess such superhuman strength, mistaking the black energy for aura. Baros, not missing the opportunity, pointed at Randolph, accusing him of necromancy, the power of the devil. The priest, giving his orders, tasked the knights with bringing Randolph down. They all charged at Randolph, poised to defeat him in the name of the god Allium. Randolph, confused, asked what they were talking about. His body, however, acted against his will, sending out attacks at the priest and knights, knocking them back. The priest, convinced Randolph was a necromancer, ordered for his immediate subjugation. Randolph wondered what Karnak had done to him. He tried swinging his sword to dispel the aura, but it just made things worse. Karnak, having recovered from his blow, controlled the aura to wrap around Randolph. The priest, mistaking the situation for Randolph's lack of proper control over the evil aura, charged to end him. Randolph, unable to speak in his defense, was impelled by the spears and died on the spot. The priest, confirming his death, ordered an immediate investigation on the Viscount's estate. Being judged guilty of calling upon the dark power, Randolph was eliminated and Karnak crowned the winner of the duel. In the estate of the Viscount Devonter, cloaks and blankets were found containing the symbol of necromancy on them. The blonde mammy protested, saying the goods were bought from a random peddler, including the suspicious hair growth formula. Yet it was all for naught. A hearing was officially called. A few days later, in our MC's estate, Karnak was feasting on a huge spread, incomparable to his training meals, a feast worthy to celebrate their victory. Baros asked how he had thought of the spell that secured their win. Karnak replied, telling him he had to do everything possible to secure their win, crediting the huge success of the plan to Randolph's fiery personality. A flashback to a month prior, Karnak argued it was the same dying while being caught using necromancy or dying during the duel. Death was death. That being the case, it would be better to just use it. However, he would put on an act to make it seem like Randolph was the real necromancer, hoping to deceive the officials. He told Baros that because the spell was especially high-end, the Order wouldn't suspect him of using it, relying on his trash reputation to elude suspicion. The plan, however, was contingent on him making Randolph bleed, and with his current trash skills that was impossible, hence the demon instructor was needed. Karnak hated recalling that horrible time. Baros, however, focused on the obvious discrepancy. Randolph should have been able to win without necromancy, yet he still allegedly used it. In addition, they also got off scot-free, so what was really going on? At the Geselen Grand Temple, headquarters of the Order of Allium, the Cardinal questioned the priest on his investigation into the Devontor's dark powers. The priest replied, saying he was certain of the Viscount's guilt. He stated that the aura wasn't from an ordinary necromancer, showcasing the vile aura sealed in the bottle. He called the aura the darkness of the apocalypse. Our boy, completely oblivious to the waves brewing, was celebrating his good luck in this life. They rejoiced the world being in their favor, planning to fully enjoy life. Baros asked Karnak about the powers that would try to capitalize on the Deventor's family's absence to seize the mine. Karnak, already having a plan for that, decided it was time to strengthen his necromancy. Startled, Baros asked about the Order potentially finding out. Our Chad, still confident, stated all he needed to do was figure out a way to use necromancy without them catching on. Mini-time skipped to 3 months later, in the Jested estate. Karnak, sitting in a magic circle, urged himself to focus, a black aura enveloping his palm. Collecting the negative energy from the moonlight, the darkness of the deep night, and calling upon the corrupt energy to filter it. He further refined the energy until only its pure form remained, a crimson aura. Karnak celebrated his success, the birth of chaos magic.